27th. We are live. All right. Greetings. Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. Tuesday night, 27th of January, 2026. Lots of things going on. Lots of things going on here and abroad, you know, lots of things, lots of interesting things. And I decided to, well, first of all, let me start off by telling you what our day was like here. I think that's important to do that. Just a day in the life. Today is my day to milk. And I milk with Brian on Tuesdays now. We've changed our schedule a little bit. I didn't get myself out of bed until 8 o'clock this morning, nearly 8 o'clock. And that was because my sleep schedule has been way off because we have had really tough weather for a while now. But it's January and it's northern Michigan. So I think it's like 4 degrees out right now. Today was a rough day. It was windy and it was snowing and it was down around 5 degrees and it was blowing. So it was a tough day to be out. It was. And I had things that I had to do, so I did. So anyway, I milked this morning, got all the milk situated, had to plow, had to get snow out of the driveway so our customers can get in. We're working on a project next door. I'll explain a little of that to you. And I had to oversee some of that. And then all of a sudden it was lunchtime. It was like 2 o'clock. We ate lunch. And then it was just whipping outside. And I thought, I'm just going to lay down on the floor right next to the wood stove. Jill was laying down on there's a little shelf there. And we both went into La La Land. The wood stove's been cranking all day long to keep the house nice and warm, which is nice. It's supposed to be, I think Friday's going to be the end of it, something like that. I think I looked at it today. Let's see. It's going to be different everywhere, but Friday. Yeah, Friday's the end of it. We're going to have -11 for the low and 8 for the high. And then the next day, Saturday, we're going to have a sunny day and the high is 16. And then Sunday, partially sunny day and the high of 25. So that's more in line with what we usually have. And we don't have a bunch of snow in the forecast. Maybe next Thursday we have a little bit, but so we're kind of out of the woods. So that was my day today. I had some time to think, and I also had a little bit of time to, look at the news. Like some of the things in the news are a little bit disturbing. What's going on in Minnesota. And here it's Minnesota, Michigan. We're kind of close. We're both Midwestern. Some of the people are sort of the same, I guess. And so when you see what's going on over in Minnesota, it can be a little bit troublesome. Although I decided to look at it in the same spirit as what I want to talk about tonight. It's called Press to Test. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. But as I was thinking about what's going on over in Minnesota, and we also have some of those protester type people that live over here in Michigan. We have quite a few of them. And I guess they're getting kind of riled up. Some of them are thinking that they want to sacrifice themselves for the cause and all the stuff. They're talking about arming up and everything. So we'll see how that goes. Should be interesting to watch. I know I will be watching it from afar. I'm not going to get anywhere near it. But then I chose today to look at this like, well, how could I make a gain on this? How could I use my position as a viral podcaster and content creator and farmer, also a certifier, right? How could I use those things to make a gain, make some money off of it? And I have a couple ideas, and I'm going to share these with you tonight. And I don't think anybody around here will be doing the same thing as what I'm doing, but maybe in your part of the country will work out. Like I see Keith's with us. Yeah, so up there in Kalkaska might work. Belva's with us. So down there in Ohio, you might be able to get a business going. It's sort of like a business facet on the farm. And so this is what I've proposed. I'm going to be offering some new products into the Baker's Green Acres store. And the first product is going to be a whistle. This isn't any whistle, though. This is a genuine certified ice sucks whistle, and it's got a little certification on it. You wouldn't be able to see it in there, but you can kind of see it. And it's Baker's Green Acres certified. We hate ice. Now, I don't really hate ice. I think they're doing a good job, right? They're carrying out federal law. But the blue-haired weirdos who do hate ice, they're going to need whistles. And we should encourage them to get their whistles. So get your whistles. This is going to be on our store. It's a certified We Hate Ice whistle. And yeah, just because we're kind of a conservative outfit doesn't mean you can't go on there and order this whistle. It's going to be available for $69.95. And if you order it today, ladies' night, you can get a two for one. So get over there to bakersgreenacres.com and you'll see the genuine We Hate Ice whistle, because you'll need this when they come into Cadillac or any place else. You'll need it. Okay? So that's the first thing. The other thing, this is really great. And this was where my scrounging expertise came in. Okay? So if you go to a protest, you're going to want to bring a pot. And then you need a pot banger. This is a pot banger. Ice out! Ice out! Okay? So we're going to be offering these. I'm not going to be able to do the two for on this one. This is a hot item. A lot of the blue hairs really like this. This is going to be $79.95 for the pot and banger combination. Okay? Available only to you on bakersgreenacres.com. This is certified as well. Certified Baker's Green Acres We Hate Ice pot and banger. Okay? You got to have that if you're going to go and protest. Right? Okay. There you go. A little bit of levity there, actually. But I think that there's some wisdom in that. And this is where I got this from. I have a friend, and he's a pretty successful businessman. And his kids are cut above. They used to hang around with my kids. And they really are cut above. And I remember this is probably 10 years ago. And in the news, some guy had accosted a police officer, and they got into a little bit of an exchange of lead. I don't even remember where it was, but the guy was wearing body armor. And several legislators at the national level, legislators at the national level said, we need to outlaw body armor for civilians. Civilians shouldn't be having body armor. We've got to outlaw that. And there was a big titter about it all over the network, the news and stuff. This is probably before we had cell phones. Everything wasn't instantaneous. And I was up at their house. We were having dinner up there. And the subject came up. And I could see his boys kind of raising their eyebrows like, yeah. Oh, yeah, we know. We know about it. And I was like, what's this? What do you guys know that we don't know? And I kind of had to drag it out of him. But finally, what he said was, well, we're going to invest in companies now, a certain company that makes body armor, because there's this upheaval over civilians having body armor. And now all these civilians that maybe thought they were going to get body armor, or maybe never thought about it at all, but think that they might want to get it before it's outlawed, these companies that build body armor will have a massive influx of sales. So that's a good company to invest in. And it dawned on me right there. Whoa, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Don't get mixed up in the minutia of should civilians have body armor or should they not have body armor. If you want body armor, go get it. If you don't want it, then shut up. But what he focused on was, if we're going to invest some of our gain, what we've made, the money that we've made, he's a machinist, he's got a machine shop. If we're going to invest some of our hard-earned gains, where do we want to put it? That's a slam dunk. Now, I got to tell you this, especially if he's listening. Years later, I finally got up the nerve to say something about that. And I said, how'd you ever come out on that? He said, oh, we never did it. Oh. They had enough other stuff going, so they never did it. That's kind of where I'm going with this talk tonight. And we titled it Press to Test. And I think this would be something that might be a good thing for homesteaders to have, and see how it turns out for you if you just understand the concept. So press to test. There's such a thing in aviation. We see it in automotive too, not so much. You see it in like big trucking, I think. And it's a a system called press to test. All right. So in aviation, it is a button that will be on the dashboard, right? And it's got two positions. You push it into the first position, and then you can push it into the second position. So there's two positions on that button, and it is a push button. If it's meant to stay energized, that when you push it in all the way, it will hold. And then to de-energize it, you have to pull it out. So let's say it's a component on an aircraft like flaps, right? Let's say flaps. When you're coming in to land, most of the time that's when you're going to be using flaps. You're going to push it in, and then your flaps are going to come down off the wing. When the flaps come down off the wing, it kills the lift that the wings make, and so you start to descend. And then you want to do that when you're coming in for landing, because you want to get lower, you want to lose altitude, and you want to lose speed, right? Because you want to land at about 200 miles an hour, but you're flying at about 500 or 600 miles an hour. So you don't want to try and land at 600 miles an hour. Be tough. So on this button, this press to test button, it's got two positions. The first position is, it even says on it, it's written around the button that says press to test. And in the middle of that button, there is a light. And this is what you do when you're coming in, say, to make a landing, and you're going to put down your flaps, let's say. When you're 5 miles out and you're just starting your short final, you're starting your final approach. You will hit that first detent, so the first position on that button, and under your thumb, when you press it, you will see it light up. It's not going to put the flaps down, but what that does is it sends a little bit of electricity through the circuit to the motor that's going to deploy the flaps, if that's what you're doing, and just tells you that, yeah, if you push this in all the way, it's going to work unless there's some other thing, but chances are once you push this in, it's going to work, right? You're getting a predetermination that you're going to have a successful component of your landing that's going to work, right? So if you didn't have that, which I'm sure at some point in aviation they didn't have that, you're coming in on final approach and you hit short final, and then it's like, okay, put the flaps down, and you jam the button in and nothing happens. Then you're in kind of a jam because you already have your landing gear down, you've already lost a lot of speed, and your flaps don't come down. Well, now what do we do? So it'd be nice if you knew that was going to fail before you got to the point where you have the landing gear down and you've killed a lot of speed, you've spooled your engines down. All right. So that's where they came out with the press to test. And they use that on many, many components in aircraft, landing lights. There's just a lot of systems that they will use to with a press to test circuit on it, right? And it's worked out really good over the years. This has been going on for a long time, since at least before World War II, we were using those. So a lot of the buttons are quite old, but they're brand new and they still use them, right? It's good stuff. So press to test. Think about that. So I guess I think about that because of my background in aviation. And when it comes to putting together a system in homesteading, I have to think about the most austere conditions and design the system so that it will not fail in those austere conditions. So this week, it was kind of a weird storm as far as I was concerned. We started hearing about it, or at least I did, only about a day and a half before the storm was supposed to hit, Snowmageddon. And there was some commentators that were saying, this is a storm that you will remember for the rest of your life. Well, I graduated in 1978, and the blizzard of 78, I certainly remember that. And I will for the rest of my life, because it was just, nobody could drive. We missed 3 weeks of school. It was great. It was really great. A lot of us kids, I'd have been like 18 at the time, congregated at a little place in the center of town called the Lantern Room. And it was just a nice place, had a jukebox, and they served food, and you could get cool ones. Drinking age was 18 back then. So it's not like I was doing anything illegal. And I probably only had like one beer anyway. Probably didn't even finish it. But yeah, it was fun. Had a good time. I will never forget the blizzard of 78. And I remember I'm at the center of town, which I used to go to first grade in the center of town, and we would walk home. And then when I was in sixth grade, I went back to the same school and I would walk home. Seventh grade, I went to a different school. And second, third, and fourth, I went to a different school. It was sort of the other direction. It was a new school. But that walk home, I was very familiar with. And then when I was in high school, I always walked home. And I would walk that same way. So until we got cars. And I got a car when I was 16. So that was it. We didn't walk anymore like us boys. There was a group of us boys that hung around together. But during the blizzard, we didn't have a choice. So we go to the Lantern Room, and then when it was time to go home, we walked home our same route. So it was fun. And some of my friends, I still keep in touch with from that time. And it comes up, actually, the blizzard of 78. Yeah. So anyway, this blizzard was supposed to be one that we will never forget the rest of our lives. And it seemed to come on in about a day. And you don't find much about it. And didn't see much happening here, actually, that was pertinent to that storm. But we have had this severely cold weather. Saturday, the thermometer here was reading 16 below. My mother-in-law's house, that's 5 miles north of me, it was 26 below. Cadillac, they were reading, I think, 40 below. Anyway, it was cold, cold. And when I got up in the morning, I thought, okay, this is a test. Our milking operation is going to function or it is not. Here we go. Right. So there's a lot of components to the milking operation. And excuse me, everything is every component of that, every facet of that operation is affected by severe cold. Okay, so Saturday was going to be a very critical day. Not my day to milk, but I was the first one out there. And I didn't even do my cold plunge that day because I wanted to be the first one out there to make sure everything's going to work. And like, what am I referring to? Well, this is a space that was built in the barn. The barn was built in like 1900. It had been used for the milk house before, but back then they didn't do it the way we do it. They weren't bottling, they were just putting it in cans. And those cans were going off to the creamery in Owen, or McBain, it's called now. So they did it differently. So they were not insulated. They had a tank in there and they pumped water into it. And then that water they used to water the cows. So they were pumping water every day. It was quite a process then. It was a lot harder for them. They milked by hand, so they didn't have a vacuum pump like we do. As far as I know, they didn't have electric lights in there. I don't think they did. So let's just talk about the components that I had to bring together to build out that space so it will function not only in the nicest day in summer, well, super hot weather in summer, it's got to function during that period of time, but it's also got to function at the other extreme, the worst days of winter, the most extreme cold weather, blowing, heavy snow. It's got to still function because milking cows, as you know, it's all weather. You can't not milk them because it's too cold outside. They got to be milked every single day, 365 days a year. They got to be milked. Now, we only milk once a day. Some people milk twice a day. Our operation, and I could explain that another time, for us, it's better to just go once a day. So when I went out the door Saturday morning, I was somewhat apprehensive. Somewhat. Okay? Because a normal day of milking takes us about an hour and a half, two people, hour 45 minutes. You know, it depends who's doing it and how thorough you want to be. Do you want to wash the floors, things like that? But I would say an hour and a half, two people, so three man hours to do. And okay, so the first thing that I encountered when I went out the door is the door going in to the milk house. Push the button down, it pushed right open. Yeah. All right, that's one. Victory. And I actually said that as I went in. And then when I walked in, I felt warm air on my face. Victory. I look at the heater. They have a little propane heater in there. Thank you, Keith. I look at the heater. I can see the pilot light running. Another victory. And it's warm in there, so I know. Then I go over to the sink. I flip up the cold water. And nothing. It can be bad. That can be really bad. And if I have no cold water, I'm not going to have any hot water. So I didn't even bother. I did a walk around in there. I went over to the um, vac pump, flipped the switch, came right on, working fine. All right, so got a little problem. Don't have any water. That can be bad. What? No, wait a minute. That was the next day. I take that back. This is Saturday when we had that extreme. This is Saturday. All right. The water came on, and I thought, great, because that's one of the major components that we have in the milk house that we have to have. We have to clean the equipment when we're done with it. Yeah, I'm thinking Sunday. We didn't have it. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. um, After that, the next thing is, does the sliding door open? Yes, it does. Slide it shut. Good. I go into the milk parlor, and then the next section is where the water tank is for the cows. And I look in there, no problem. They even got a little bit of water in there. I keep a heater in it, just a bird bath heater, and it's doing very well. I go in to what we call the office, which is in between the butcher shop and the milk parlor. I go in there, I walk in, I can feel it's a little bit warm in here. That's good because we run a small heater in there because all the plumbing comes together right there. And we have a series of valves in there so we can valve stuff in and valve stuff out. And I go over to a certain valve and I flip it on and I can feel the water running, and it's running right into the cow's water. So by the time I was done there, came back into the milk house, I was like, yes, yes. Now I know it's cold out. I'm reading 16 below and the wind's blowing. So I'm thinking the wind chill, the way it's going to affect people and machinery and animals, it's probably 30 below, right? Probably. So the next thing is I got to prepare to feed, right? Every other day I have to drop a round bale in with the milk cows. And that Saturday was the day. So I went in to where I keep the tractor. I plugged it in. And I usually leave it plugged in for about a half an hour. And then you can actually walk up to the engine, the water jacket on the engine, and you can actually feel some heat there. And so I know that the oil's warmed up and everything's going to be fine. Well, I got a good start on it, but then when I backed it out, I'm in the cold air, and right on the front of the tractor is the tank, and the fuel gels up, right? Because it's so cold. We needed to run a little bit of heat in the butcher shop, and Frank went over to get some diesel fuel out of the tank, and he says, "Hey, Dad, something wrong with the pump. It's not pumping." And when I looked at the fuel in the strainer, you could see it was kind of opaque. It was so cold, it was gelled up. And that's supposed to be winter fuel, but I don't know. I don't know what the story is on that. So the tractor quit, and it quit when I had a bucket full of feed for the pigs in the bucket, and it shut off. And I was right in a wind tunnel, and that tractor is cooling down by the second, and if it gets to maximum cold, might not get it started, might not. So I had to kind of devise a plan, and that plan was I backed my truck up to it, and I had a torpedo heater in the truck, and then I put a blanket over the tractor, and then blasted a torpedo heater right at it, and just give it a good preheat. And voila, it started. Took a while, took a half an hour, but it started. And then I decided that I wasn't going to use the fuel that we had here. I was going to go to the gas station. They've got diesel fuel there. It's not the off-road stuff that I usually use, but I know that if it's coming out of the pump, it's in a tank, that is below the ground. And so it's probably going to be 55 degrees or 60 degrees by the time I get it, instead of, negative 16, right? So I got 15 gallons in gas cans, and then I put an additive to it. It's called 911, diesel 911. I split it up between, no, I got 20 gallons between 4 cans, and that was maybe way overboard, but I wanted to make sure that we were going to be okay for this stretch of cold weather that we're going to have. I can't afford to have problems like this. So, yeah, I got it going, got the feeding done, got my bales dropped, and was able to put the tractor in, put the blanket over it, and bed it down for the night. And by the time we were heading up for lunch, we were feeling pretty good about the systems that we had built. I mean, everything from the door to the insulation to the windows to the heating system to the hot water system, the cold water system, everything worked. The equipment worked for milking. It worked very well. And we were able to get it done in extreme cold. For here, that's extreme cold. If we were in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it's pretty routinely down at that temperature. And then when it gets cold, it goes even a little further. When I was stationed in Maine, up in the crown of Maine, Aroostook County at Loring Air Force Base, normal was about 12 below. It seemed like it just stayed at 12 below all winter long. And then when it got cold, oh, be careful, it's cold out, it would be 30 below. And that wasn't even without the wind chill. And man, that place was windy. Anyway, so what did we do through that extreme cold? We actually hit the press to test. Okay, I built this so it would work in all weather. And we came away from it and said it did. So I can be reasonably, comfortably assured that next year, when I see 16 degrees coming on the horizon, negative 16, I'm not going to be stressed. I'm not going to, throw care to the wind. I'm still going to make sure doors are shut and heaters are on and all those things, my checklist before I go in at night. But I don't think I'm going to have that internal stress that, oh, wow, it's going to get cold. See, because what can happen? You can lose water. Water can freeze, and it may never come unthawed. All of our water is in plastic or PVC pipes. So once it's frozen, the only way to get at it is to dig it up. And I know this because last year, wintertime, we had just run the water into the milk house. We had just run it in. And there'd never, as far as I know, there hadn't been water in there before. And I was running the water lines underground for a lot of it, but they were inside the barn. And I thought, well, the dirt here is not even wet, so it's not going to transfer for the cold or the frost down into the. So I didn't bury them that deep. I put them down like maybe 16 inches, and I didn't put any insulation over them. And I thought, well, that'll be fine. It's inside, it's not going to be that cold down there. Well, I was wrong. And the water froze, and it was just before Christmas. I remember this because 2 of my boys were home from the Air Force, and I was kind of glad that they were because, we had more than one shovel, so we had to dig it all back up, and it was tough because the ground, not that it was totally dry, it was mostly dry, but where it wasn't, it was crusty, and so getting down through it was pretty tough. And what we did is we got it thawed out. And then we buried it down 24 inches. We put it down as deep as we thought it needed to go. And then we put insulation over it, like 2-inch board insulation. So there's just an insulation barrier in between the cold and the water in the pipes. And sure enough, this year we actually did the test on it just last Saturday, and we didn't have a problem. So I was glad that was the case. So we tested it. Another thing from last year, when we ran the water into the milk house, I kind of had in my mind, okay, we'll put the water pipes underneath the tin that we put on the ceiling and the walls. So we'll run it underneath that. So it'll be in between the insulation on the top and then the space underneath, just under the tin is where the water pipes will be. And I thought, well, that'll be perfect. We shouldn't have a problem. Well, I was wrong about that too. That required that I kept the space at about 70 degrees or 60 degrees. And I don't want to keep that space at 60 degrees because we're only in there for about an hour and a half most days, 2 hours maybe. Although it's become sort of my hangout when it's cold like this because it is warm, it's a place to get in. And so we froze again just with the water pipes up under the tin. And so to get that thawed, I had to put a lot of heat into that space. So I used a salamander heater. And it took a while, but finally the water started flowing. But I thought, this is going to happen again. So then I made the decision to run the water pipes externally. And so I made some spacers and I put them up on the bottom of the rafters. And then I've run my water lines externally under the tin in the space. You can see them when you go in. And it actually doesn't look too bad. I'm kind of used to that because, again, in aviation, you don't want covers on stuff. You want to be able to see that component is not leaking with just a flashlight. Boop, not leaking, should be good. Right? You don't want to have to take a cover off to verify that it's not leaking, or a cable that's running through bulkheads. You want to be able to see that cable with a flashlight and make sure that the cable isn't starting to fray or wear through the bulkhead or something else. You want to be able to see it. So I like when wires and pipes and stuff are external because then I can see them and I know what's going on. Okay, so everything worked and it worked good. Our dishwasher still works down there. It worked out really good. And we've made it through the coldest that we're going to see this winter, most likely. And if it gets a little colder, I always have a backup plan. You always want to have a backup plan. My backup plan is, again, the salamander heaters, or construction site heaters, they call them. It's kerosene, diesel, gasoline, and it's just not exactly a real clean burn or anything, but a lot of heat. I think mine are 180,000 BTUs is what they put out. So it puts out a lot of heat. And mine, I have two of them. I have a big one and a small one. Have a thermostat on it, and I can set the thermostat down to 45. So I can leave it plugged in, set it to 45. I think that's the lowest it goes. And then during the night, if it dips, that thing will kick on. And I can leave it in a safe location. I've tested them and tested them and tested them, and they always seem to work reliably. And so I feel comfortable having that in there. The workspace that I'm talking about, it didn't dip down below 50 because the propane heater that's in there, I got it from Keith. He scrounged it someplace. When I set it at the lowest setting of 1, it keeps it at 50, or at least where I have my thermostat or my thermometer, which is right above the sink where my water is. And so I walk in, and that's one of the first. Wow, it is negative 16 out here, but in here it is 50. It feels really good. So that worked. That worked. Okay, let's go to the next thing. The next thing is the apartment next door. All right. So Brian is staying at the apartment next door. He's my hired man. And he's not going to be over there much longer. He's getting himself a pull trailer, and he's going to stay in that at the campground this summer. It's an upgrade from last year. He stayed in a tent all summer. It was sort of a challenge, and he did quite well with it. But he's going to get himself a travel trailer, and he's going to fix it up, and he's going to stay in there. Good rent-free living. So when we built out the apartment, we had to do a lot of drywalling. We had to run water. There was no water there. I didn't want to put an additional well there, so we ran water from the farm over in a 3/4-inch pipe below the frost line, and it comes up into the kitchen over there that we built. Put a lot of time into it, a lot of expertise, a lot of money into it. Really nice, cute little place. And then to distribute water, we made the decision. It was a bad decision, but we made the decision to run the PEX tubing in the ceiling, right? And it was a bad decision. I didn't like the decision, but I kind of went with it. And so that's what we did. And then we put insulation over it, right? But still, you got to have enough heat to get through that ceiling and up to it to keep it open. And it just kind of bothers me, the blowing insulation. What if some of it gets blown around in the, or settles or something? I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And sure enough, let's see, what day would that have been? That was Friday. This was Friday before it got cold. Brian calls me. He's supposed to milk Friday, him and me. And he says, I got water coming down through the ceiling. And I said, okay, go under the sink. There's a valve. Turn it to the off position. Well, he turned it to the on position. He turned it full on. And I got over there, and there's a lot of water everywhere. And he says, I don't know. It's like coming out more now. And so I go look at the valve, and I turn it off. And okay, it stopped. But it did a lot of damage. And yeah, under the floor and everything. It was pretty bad. It had been going like that. He didn't notice it until he got home from work. And so we were trying to determine what happened. Here's what happened. I think it's hard to know. You almost got to be a forensic scientist to figure it out. So when we went in to look at it, not only was there water everywhere, there was smoke. And I just kind of thought, well, it's the wood stove, because it failed right above the wood stove, and there was water that ran down all over the wood stove and seemed to put it out, I guess. And so we had to climb up into the crawl space to try and figure out where the pipe had broken. But the water was still running, so it didn't seem like it froze because it was still running. Yeah, it was strange. Got up there, and where the pipe for the wood stove goes through the ceiling and then the roof, insulation had blown up around it. Now, this is my fault that this happened, because when the insulation was being blown in, I should have been the last person up there to make sure everything was done right. And there shouldn't have been insulation up against it. It should have been back at least a foot all the way around. And had it been pushed back, this wouldn't have happened. But evidently, with the insulation right up against the pipe, and it's not the single wall, it's double wall, it started to smolder. and it looked like it had been smoldering for a long time, and it finally burned through the water pipe. That's the way it looked. And then the water pipe started to spray, and it put the fire out. It wasn't actually a fire, but it was a smoldering thing in this blow-in insulation, and I suppose it could have created a fire. It could have. There was a lot of smoke. I mean, you had to be kind of careful up there. There was so much smoke. So we got it put out. It was still pretty hot, and just stood there looking at it. There's water every place, and the place is full of smoke, and like, we still got to milk this morning, we still got to do everything, and now we've got this horrible mess. And there was one circuit that seemed to have failed. There's no lights on. Why is that? So I still haven't figured that out, because I haven't had a chance to get over there yet, other than to assess what we need to do. So here's what we're going to do over there, right? This is a press to test situation. I have a guy over there that is essentially a renter, right? It's not top of mind to him that the water's going to freeze. People from town, or if you lived in the city, you don't think about that. It just doesn't really happen. So he's not thinking about it. And I can't expect anybody who's going to live in there in the future to think about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the plumbing external, the same as I did over here. And it actually looks pretty good. I'm not using blue and red like I used in the milk house. I'm just using an opaque white, and we're making nice spacers for it to sit on the wall. And it's just we'll keep it nice and horizontal and nice and straight and everything. It'll look good. No one will even know that it's not supposed to be that way. It kind of looks a little industrial, a little utilitarian. So we're in the process right now of getting that installed. And then he will have water again, and he will have his toilet and all that stuff. In the meantime, he was very gracious, and he said, "No, it's not a problem. I still have my gym membership, so don't worry about it. When we get to it, we get to it." We should have it back online by Friday, I'm thinking. But in that case, I'm kind of glad that it happened with Brian there, because he's a very graceful guy, and he doesn't really care all that much about creature comforts. But let's say it was a renter and that happened. Well, I'd have to put them in a hotel until I got the place renovated, I suppose. It's kind of my fault. Even if it was their fault, it's my fault. So there again, we hit the press to test, and it failed. So it's something that we have to rework it and use our heads as we're doing the install and think, I don't care what everybody else does and what somebody else says, this is how you should do it. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm doing it this way. Because there's a term that we use in aviation. I think other career fields use it too. When you build a system out, you have to make it Murphy proof. Because Murphy's Law says that if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. So you design it so it can't go wrong. Go wrong. Go wrong. Go wrong. That's a joke. And so it has to be built in such a way that somebody can't defeat it. When I started thinking in my mind how to design this over there, I thought, well, if I do this, what could go wrong then? Because you put it external, and what will go wrong then? We put it in the wall before, and I'm thinking, oh, this isn't good, because somebody could be putting a picture on the wall and put a nail right through one of the pipes. So then we put it further into the wall, figuring somebody's not going to use a spike. But we got closer to the outside when we did that. So it was kind of a trade-off. Now this one, they're going to be external. And I thought, well, what could go wrong there? Oh, really? What could go wrong there? Some kid could jump up and start doing pull-ups on it is what could happen. So I'm going to put it up high so they can't be reached easily, and people won't hang stuff on it and things like that. But even so, if I'm to go in there once in a while to do a look around, because it belongs to me if I'm going to have somebody renting it, I can just look around and I can see, oh, okay, that's working fine. That's working fine. Go over, hit the sink. Yeah, it's working. No problems there. So it seemed like a really bad day Friday. Like we had our share of problems that day, but it was actually a good thing. And that's what you encounter in this system building on the homestead. There you have it. Remember, you go to bakersgreenacres.com to get your certified whistle. This is a We Hate Ice whistle. You're going to need one of these. And maybe we'll be putting some blue hair dye on there too. You can get some of that while you're getting this. But this, you're going to need your whistle. If you're going to go and do a little protesting, ice protesting, and if you really want to show up at the protest and be somebody, you're going to want to get your pot too, and your banger. Pot and banger, $79.95. Today and today only. Okay, that's it. Let me go through and read what we have here. Okay, Keith's with us, Belva's with us, Braveheart's with us. Braveheart saying, buy more silver. Now, that's an interesting subject. That's a very interesting subject. I bought silver quite a long time ago. I bought silver when silver was $23. And I was friends with a guy at the time, and he was saying, you're going to want to do this because silver is going to go crazy. So we did. We bought silver. It was fun. You know, you get these nice coins and stuff. It's just bullion is what they call it, bullion. So we got our silver and stuff, and then it went from 23 to 20. So we lost money. We lost money. And then it went to 17. Oh, we're getting killed on this. And so our silver has been sitting in an ammunition can. My kids had some. I had some. Jill had some. We all had some. And so my kids have got moved out of the house. So they take their silver with them. Here, take this. Get it out of here. I don't want it around here anymore. Well, silver has gone, I think today it broke $113. And because I got into silver so many years ago, every time I hear something about silver, my ears kind of perk up. So I guess I'm pretty well educated as far as silver goes. And the guy that I would listen to as far as silver goes is Robert Kiyosaki. And he makes so much sense. He's a helicopter pilot, Vietnam era type guy, flew Marine Hueys over in Vietnam. Pretty good guy. I would listen to him. I do listen to him. And he says, hang on to it because it's going to go vertical. It's going to go vertical. And we kind of over the years thought that vertical, when's that happening? And it actually has gone vertical. So 113 from this time last year. I think this time last year it was like 24. So it's really spiked. And this is just in the new year. And he says that I think the number that he gave was 420 is where he thinks that it would be a good marker that when you got there, a portion of your silver, you should sell it and then take that money and invest it in real live things like land, things like that. And some of those dollars, if you don't spend them, if silver goes back south again, then rebuy it and hang on to it again. But he doesn't think that's going to happen. And there's a whole bunch of reasons that you'd have to get in and research and see what you think. Be kind of interesting. But 113, that is unheard of. And it's not getting much play because we're all watching what's going on over watching the pot bangers over in Minnesota getting themselves in trouble over there. That's a weird one. But all right. I could give commentary on that, correct commentary on that. And maybe I should, because you probably need to know this. I'm not going to argue at all whether that woman was killed correctly, whether it was a justifiable shoot or not. I'm not going to. I don't want to get into that because you get into other people's rules when it's okay to kill, and I don't really like that because it's too deep, and my opinion on over there now is different from what other people think. So I don't even want to give that out. And then this last guy that was killed, I don't know what I saw. Again, I'm not going to say it was it was a good shoot, but I think what I saw was he was disarmed while he had him down. The fellow that pulled the gun off of him seemed to be holding it without his finger in the on the trigger or the trigger guard. Didn't even have it in the trigger well. And as he was walking, it seemed like it discharged. Because if you watch it, you see his head go like this, and I'm sure he felt it too when it discharged. And those guns, I hate them things. It's a SIG 320. I hate them things. They are notorious for accidental discharge. I do not want a pistol that's going to accidentally discharge. No matter what, it can't. That's why I thought it was a huge mistake when we got away from the M1911 because it never accidentally discharged. Never. And we carried those things locked and cocked. So we had one in the chamber, hammer back, safety on. That's how you carried them. And they never went off. Right? And there was a long track record of those things never going off. And I still have mine. And that's how I carry it if I'm going to carry it, although I don't carry it because I don't go any place where I need to carry it. I might be carrying it out to the field when I'm going to shoot at cans. Then I'm carrying it. And that's how I would carry it if I was going to carry it. But I like I said many times, I don't carry a gun because I don't go any place where I need to carry a gun. And if I need to carry a gun, I'm not going to that place. That's easy. I'm avoiding the whole thing. I don't like that whole getting shot, shooting. I don't like any of that. It's optional. You don't have to. But anyway, what the bigger issue over there is, there was a little powwow between the top guy and the top guy over in Governor and his minions. And it came right on the heels of some very interesting information that has been coming out. And I'm sure DOJ has collared several people and they're singing. And the big man had a powwow with Governor Waltz, Tampon Tim, and Tampon Tim capitulated. I mean, he bent the knee big time. You see, the guys that shot that fella the other day, what day was that? Saturday. That was Saturday, wasn't it? They were Border Patrol. And the only reason Border Patrol is there is because the police in Minneapolis are on stand down orders. They are not supporting ICE. And people were wondering, how do these protesters, they're not really protesting, how do they know where these arrest operations are happening? How do they know where it's going to be? They found this network of intel. It was an intel network, and it was pretty well organized and it was pretty well funded. And so I believe that Trump has old Tim by the short ones, and Waltz capitulated big time. big time. So they're going to start handing over all the illegals that are in their jails and prisons. And Trump always gets what he wants, and they need to go. Every illegal needs to be out of the country. Every single last one of them, violent or non-violent, they have to go. That's just the way it is. That's the law of the land. So we're moving in a good direction now as of yesterday afternoon, because last night the police in Minneapolis made arrests. I think they made like 26 arrests. And prior to that, they made 0 arrests. They were not immigration. They were not supporting them. So the ICE officers will do that, but they really can't, because that's not their jurisdiction. They are there for immigrations and customs enforcement, not, if somebody tries to run you over with a car, well, that is a criminal situation with non-illegals. So they can't really do that. And if let's say they did arrest that woman, what would they do with her? Keep her in a car or an SUV? They couldn't put her at the jail because the police force there was like, nope, we're on stand down orders. We can't help you. But now it's changed. So that's my commentary on that. I think it's good news. Gabe's saying too cold to riot for me. Too icy. Yeah. Sean Wise. Leather Homestead. Hey, all. Susan Grievous is with us. We saw Susan Grievous the other night, Sunday night. She brought us some cheese over here. It was real good stuff. Dave Duncan's with us. I heard I gave you a little bit of a scare when I almost fell in that hole I cut in the ice. That's what Rachel told me today. All right. Leather Homestead saying worst here since 93, mid-Tennessee. All right. Honey Caffeine is with us. You're usually in bed by now, aren't you, honey? Not teaching tonight. We had several big snow squalls, so staying home. Good for you. How are your poultry and animals doing in the cold? Hey, I haven't had a glitch. My cows are all doing fantastic. My pigs are doing fantastic. My calves are doing fantastic. And that's who I kind of worry about the most, because they're kind of dumb and they stand out in the cold. But they're doing well. They're getting in out of the cold. Every time I see them, they're just chomping down on hay, and they seem to be doing really well. So we haven't had any problems in all this, and that's good, because I know people have contacted me that are having problems, and it's kind of tough because it's the worst time to deal with problems, and once you notice them, sometimes it's a little late in the game, All right, that's it. All right, so we are not having our conference call tomorrow night. That is not happening. It is our week off. I don't think there's anything else I need to brief. I think that's about it. Is there anything else? They say it is the coldest has been in 8 years. Wow, really? And Putnam, 1851. Really? Oh, 8 years. Okay. Yeah, could be. Honey says, I don't like Murphy or his laws. Yeah. Well, it's a way to think about things. When you're designing a system, you've got to think, where is it going to fail? And is it going to fail on a nice sunny day or a nice cool day in the fall? No, it's going to be when it's 15 below and you can't feel your fingers and water freezes and nothing works right. Like, I get sensors in my pickup truck to tell me when my air pressure is low in a tire. And I went out there, I filled it up. It was right at 32, and it's still saying that the air pressure is at 20. So it's froze. No calves yet. We re-looked at that. I say me and Jill, mostly Jill. She looked at it and realizes that there was an error made. Here's what that error was. I had a calendar that I was keeping all the information on the milk cows. And remember, there was a time when we only had about 5 milk cows. Now we have 10. And then you get 10 calves. So our herd has increased a lot. And that calendar wound up missing. I mean, the one calendar that I needed with all the important dates on it, artificial insemination dates and things like that, it disappeared. It was the strangest thing. And we needed those dates. So we turned the place upside down. So what Jill did is when the artificial insemination guy had come, and this would be 9 months ago, I would pay him right then. So I had wrote him a back through the check register, and she said, "Here's when you wrote the check." Well, turns out when she found the calendar on the check and the date on the check and the date on the calendar were off by 1 month. So I'm going to be having calves next month, which is not good because I'm low on milk right now and we're having to keep people away for milk shares. We're having to hold people off. But these nights have been so cold, it's pretty hard for a calf to, drop and then make it without us being close, and go to bed at night and you sleep for 4 hours, go out and check, try to go to sleep again, terrible. So next month won't be so bad. Kitty Daddy 2023. Do you have Mangalites? Still have Mangalites? I sure do. I have never, since we got them in 2009. Yeah, 2009. I have never not had them. And part of that is a little Irish stubbornness, I must say. But I've grown to like those pigs quite a bit. Like in this weather, it doesn't faze them. It does not faze them. They're some of the hardiest pigs that I've ever seen. Okay. If that is it, we'll call it good for the night. Appreciate everybody coming by. Did somebody nice to know? Okay. Kitty Daddy. Kitty Daddy. Yep, we have been getting up every single couple hours rotation. You know what? The thing to do, and I will have this system before long. I'm still tailoring the dairy operation, but it won't happen again where we lose the calendar, I hope. And we will be putting those cows that are within a week of calving, we'll put them in a box stall. And the box stall will have their own water, their own hay supply. And then if we really need to, cameras are so cheap now. And instead of me going out to check, I could just look at my phone, and so long as that box stall is bedded and out of the wind, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. So I'm going to do that. It's just a process of getting that done. Not going to happen this winter, I can tell you that. Okay, I'm out of here. Remember, anyone can farm. See you on the next stream.